Susan Lennox. Illustrated by James Nathaniel. Focus question. Who were the Crafts and why are they remembered? Introduction. Dressing up as someone else can be fun. Now imagine that your life depends on how well you play that part. Years ago, the Crafts pretended to be different people to escape being enslaved. People as property. Black enslaved people were considered property. They were forced to do whatever their enslavers asked. They had few of the rights that white people had. They could not learn to read or write. They could be bought and sold. They also could be starved, beaten, or even killed if they angered their enslavers. In January 1863, President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, which granted freedom to many, but not all enslaved people. The original proclamation freed all enslaved people in most slaveholding states. It did not include Delaware, Maryland, Kentucky, and Missouri. The enslaved people in these states would not be freed for another 2 years. Born into slavery. William and Ellen Craft were Black Americans born into slavery. William was born in 1824 and lived in Macon, Georgia. His family was owned by a man who liked to gamble. When the man lost a bet, he paid it by selling a member of William's family. William was sold when he was 16. He was a skilled carpenter, and his new enslaver saw that William did good work. He had William make things to earn money for him. Ellen was 2 years younger than William. Her father was a white man who enslaved Ellen's mother. Ellen's skin was so light that many people didn't know her mother was Black. When Ellen was 11, she was given to her married half-sister to do the work of a servant. When the half-sister moved to Macon, Ellen went with them. There she met William. A decision fueled by love. In time, William and Ellen fell in love. They wanted to be together. Getting married, however, was not easy for enslaved people. They needed their enslavers' permission to wed. If enslaved couples had different enslavers, they could not live together. In 1846, Ellen and William got permission and were married. For 2 years, the Crafts lived apart. They could see each other only once in a while. They worried that one of them could be sold at any time and sent far away. The Crafts knew that the only way they could live as a family would be to escape to the North. Black people could live freely in states there. But how could the Crafts leave without being caught? They had a clever plan: free states and slave states. In 1860, there were 33 states in the United States. Slavery was legal in the 15 southern slave states and illegal in the 18 northern free states. In the states where slavery was legal, enslaved Black people had none of the rights of their white enslavers. In free states, Black people could live freely. The slave states formed the Confederacy. After the Confederates lost the Civil War, the 13th Amendment to the Constitution ended slavery in the United States, and all states became free states. Preparing and planning. The Crafts' idea was a daring one. They would travel to Pennsylvania, the nearest free state. Since Ellen's skin was so light, she would pretend to be a white person. William could travel with her as her house servant. There was just one problem. Ellen could not travel as a woman. Women of that time did not travel alone. They certainly didn't travel with an enslaved man. There was only one way their plan would work. Ellen had to pretend to be a white man. Ellen was afraid at first. If they got caught, they would be punished. She finally agreed when they decided what they would do. The night of the escape, William would cut Ellen's hair short. She would wear special clothes to hide her figure. She would also wear a bandage around her face and green glasses. To complete her disguise, Ellen would wear one arm in a sling. Ellen had never learned to read or write. She could not sign for their travel tickets. A hurt arm would give her the perfect excuse not to sign. Being hurt would also explain why William was traveling with his enslaver. As long as they acted their parts, no one would suspect a thing. The Great Escape begins. The Crafts decided to leave on December 21st, 1848. William had set aside some money for their trip. The couple asked their enslavers for time off at Christmas. Enslavers often gave enslaved people a few days to celebrate with their families. The Crafts could leave then and not be missed for days. When the day came, William cut Ellen's hair and helped her into her costume. They said a prayer and went into town to buy train tickets. Travel at that time was segregated, so they had to sit in separate train cars. There they waited to begin the first part of their trip. Suddenly, William saw someone he knew on the train platform. It was the owner of the shop where William worked. The man had come looking for the Crafts. William ducked down in his seat, shaking with fear. Just as the man reached William's car, the train's bell clanged. The man left, and William sighed in relief. He was safe. Ellen had a scare of her own. When another passenger sat next to her, Ellen froze. He was a good friend of her enslaver and had known Ellen for years. Ellen sat very still and did not dare look up. The man, though, did not see her. Ellen pretended to be deaf so she could avoid talking and giving herself away. Setting sail for freedom. The Crafts reached Savannah, Georgia safely and took a steamer ship to South Carolina. There, they ran into trouble. The clerk did not want to sign for the couple's tickets. Just then, the boat captain from their first ship passed by. He offered to sign for them. They met their final test in Maryland. Slave states that shared borders with free states had border patrols. These patrols checked for escapees. The Maryland Border Patrol stopped the Crafts and would not let them pass. One officer finally took pity on them. He let the Crafts board. They arrived safely in Pennsylvania on Christmas morning, 1848. There, they found friends and shelter. Across the ocean to safety. The Crafts went on to live in Boston, Massachusetts. William and Ellen both found jobs, and for a while, life was good for them. Their good life did not last, however. In 1850, a new law was passed. The law made it a crime to protect escapees. Those living in free states were suddenly in danger. The Underground Railroad. How did the Crafts know where to go once they reached Philadelphia? They used the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad was a system of escape routes and safe houses run by people who helped escapees get to freedom. The routes ran through free northern states all the way to Canada. People who helped enslaved people escape kept an eye out for Black people coming into free states from the South. They would give the newcomers shelter, food, and directions to freedom. Two bounty hunters arrived in Boston searching for the Crafts. The Crafts hid with friends, but they grew tired of living in fear. In December 1850, they went to England. The Bloodhound Law. In 1850, Congress passed the Fugitive Slave Act. The law stated that a person who helped an escapee would be fined $1,000, a large sum in those days. Anyone who returned an enslaved person to their enslaver would get a reward or bounty. The law was referred to as the Bloodhound Law because bounty hunters would use bloodhound dogs to track down escapees. This was the rule of law in both free and slave states. Still, many free states ignored the law and refused to hunt down escapees or the people who helped them. The Long Trip Home. The Crafts settled in London and had 5 children. They traveled around England and spoke against slavery. In 1860, William wrote a book about their escape. In 1870, William and Ellen returned to the United States, where slavery was now against the law. The Crafts settled back in Georgia. They started 2 schools for people who were once enslaved, but the schools were burned down. They started another school, but white people forced them to close it down. In 1890, they moved in with their daughter in South Carolina and lived there until they died. In the end, they achieved what they wanted most from life. They raised a family that could not be torn apart by slavery and lived out their lives together.